Hi, welcome back to ITP 115, Programming in Python. Today we're going to be talking about string processing, specifically how to validate input. We've already learned that the input function always returns a string, and if we want to be able to get a number from that string, we will typecast it to an integer. Right? And so we could say at this point the type of variable name is a string, the type of variable age is an int. But what if instead of typing in 20, the string 20 that can easily be converted into an integer, like the normal case that we're used to, what happens if the user types in 20, the string twenty? Then we would get an error. We would actually get a value error, and the Python interpreter would tell us, hey, we were expecting, in order to typecast, we were expecting a base 10 number, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You got 10 fingers and toes. This is what humans are used to. And we were expecting a string that could be typecast into an integer, right? And it occurred on this line. Well, there are ways to check to make sure that that string can be, right, is able to be converted into a variable of type integer. And we're going to be focusing on this one. But there are many different types of characters or what we call character classes. We can check to see if a string is composed of nothing but alphabet, letters and numbers, characters. In other words, punctuation would not be allowed through. Is it purely alpha, right? Meaning no numbers, nothing but letters. Is there space, right? Contains only space, okay? And then this one, which was what we're going to be focusing on, does the string contain only digits, or in other words, can this string be safely typecast into an integer? And so we could write some code, right? We learned about while loops last week, right? So now we can prompt them for a string like we would as always, and this is going to return a string, and we're going to store that as a variable age string, and then we can repeatedly check, did the string that they type in, is it all digits, but is that false? So in other words, the way of reading this line here is, so long as, right, or as long as the string that they typed in is not all digits, re-prompt them for input. Basically ask them again, and then this time ask them a little bit more clearly. Hey, we're really looking for a number here. Store that again as a string, right? And then recheck it, potentially recheck it. And so in other words, you can read this line as, so long as the string that they typed in cannot be typecast to an int, re-ask them for a string that can be typecast to an int. So that finally, when they do type one in, this condition here will evaluate to true, right? They typed in nothing but digits. It can be converted, right? True is not equal to false. So this while loop will end. And so by the time that our Python interpreter gets here, right? By the time this while loop ends, we know that we have a string that can safely be typecast to an int. And if we run that again, we won't get an error. An age variable will be of type int. There are other methods of strings, and we'll be going over examples of all of these during our interactive time in lecture. But some ones that we want to highlight are, you can check to see if a string ends with a given value or substring, right? And that will return true or false. Same thing, either end with or start with, right? Same thing. And there are also different methods available on string that can do things like count the number of times a given value appears in a given string. We can find the index of the first occurrence of a given value in a given string. And these are two different ways of doing that. By the way, the difference between find and index is find will return -1 if the value is not found. Index will actually raise an exception. We're going to be talking about exceptions later. But depending on how you have your code set up, you might want to favor one or the other. And there are actually many different string methods available to us, off of an object of the string class, in this case string, right? If you open up PyCharm and type string dot, you can see there is actually many more of these, but these are the ones that, this is the smattering, the highlights that we're going to focus on in this class, and we'll go over examples of all of these, right? We actually briefly covered these in the vending machine assignment, on how to convert yes and no, capital Y and capital N to lowercase y and lowercase n, so that you only have to compare it to one thing. But we could also capitalize just the first letter, convert to uppercase, convert the first letter of every word, right? Space separated words in a sentence. So if you were like making a title of a book or a movie. We also talked about the power of strip, meaning take the leading or beginning and trailing or ending white space, where white space is defined as, of course, spaces, but also tabs and new lines from the beginning and end of a string, not the stuff in the middle, not the spaces in the middle of a sentence. And then we can also replace all of a given value, old, in this case old, with a new value. So replace all if you were writing a book and you wanted to replace, kind of like in Word, global find and replace. You wanted to change a character name and you had hundreds of pages, you could let the computer do that. So we're going to be going over examples of all of these string methods during interactive time in lecture. In the next video, we'll be talking about how to index and slice strings.